A sweltering, sticky Tuesday morning in mid-August unfolded in Ridgefield, Georgia, as Marcus Bennett emerged from his battered pickup truck. The fading sunlight bled an orange haze over the town, while Marcus, recently anointed as the head of the local police force, stepped forward clad in threadbare denim, a time-worn blue tee, and boots marked by every mile. His simple cap sheltered eyes that had seen too much, deliberately choosing to arrive unnoticed just days after his appointment was sealed. In this raw moment, he was determined to witness the department as it truly was, unsanitized by ceremonial gloss, before the heavy legacy of corruption, prejudice, and unchecked authority could hide behind a polished veneer. Yet beneath the sultry calm, the storm was gathering. In the lot, murmurs and muted laughter wove through clusters of officers leaning against dented cruisers, coffee cups in hand, trading jests and idle banter. With measured steps, Marcus adjusted his cap and slipped through the station's side door, where stale coffee and the musty aroma of worn leather chairs greeted him amid the hum of buzzing fluorescence. At first, he blended into the backdrop like a shadow unnoticed, until a tall, street-savvy man in similar attire caught a glimpse of him. That was precisely the illusion Marcus sought. But an unexpected voice shattered the fragile calm. A crisp, mocking tone sliced through the low din. "Hey, you lost, buddy? This isn't a shelter." Marcus turned to confront a white officer whose gleaming badge and icy smirk betrayed disdain. Officer Kyle Stevens advanced, his tone laced with arrogance and a condescending sneer, as two colleagues watched with gleeful amusement from behind a desk. One of them even smacked the surface with a laugh that echoed through the corridor. Despite the sting in his jaw, Marcus maintained an unyielding composure honed by years of service, even as Stevens leaned in close and deliberately spat warm, repulsive saliva onto his cheek. In that suspended moment, the hallway erupted with cruel laughter. With deliberate calm, Marcus produced a neat handkerchief and wiped away the insult, his steady voice rising in measured reproach. "Is this how you treat everyone who walks through these doors?" And in that charged silence, the first spark of defiance was lit. Without a word, Marcus turned and strode purposefully toward the building's heart, leaving behind the sneering officer and his cronies. In the precinct's briefing room, a space thick with the aroma of coffee and faded leather, officers milled about with half-hearted chatter and clinking mugs, their casual ease masking deeper disquiet. At the front, Captain James Holloway, a broad-shouldered figure with time-etched features and silver-threaded hair, commanded attention with a booming order to quiet the room. "Settle down," he barked, as murmurs dwindled. "Today marks the end of Chief Anderson's era and the dawn of a new chapter. With decades of experience and a vision for reform, please welcome Chief Marcus Bennett." But the revelation stirred more than just surprise. All eyes converged on Marcus as he emerged from the side entrance, even Officer Stevens' smug expression faltered into pallid recognition. Moving with measured authority, Marcus approached the podium and set down a folder embossed with the Ridgefield seal. Scanning the room with unwavering resolve, he began in a clear, resonant tone. "Good morning. I am Marcus Bennett, and as of today, I am your new chief of police." The room fell into a breathless hush, punctuated only by the slow tightening of Stevens' clenched fists and the deepening flush on his face. Marcus pressed on. "I arrived unannounced to witness this department with unfiltered eyes, and what I observed was both stark and alarming." A low murmur rippled through the ranks. Raising a measured hand, he continued, "This morning, one of your own disrespected not only me but also the badge, our solemn oath, and the community we are sworn to protect. That behavior stops now." And as tension built like a coiled spring, a decisive moment loomed. Officer Stevens shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting away under Marcus's piercing gaze. "Respect isn't optional, it's the very foundation of our duty," Marcus declared, letting the charged silence hang heavy before stepping away from the podium. He advanced toward Stevens, halting only a few feet away. His voice, low and unwavering, carried across the hushed room. "Officer Stevens, when you spat on me, you didn't merely show disrespect, you defiled this department, this badge, and our community. Such behavior is utterly unacceptable." Stevens stuttered, barely audible. I didn't know." Marcus cut him off sharply. "You never bothered to know. You never paused to think before acting." Turning to the assembled officers, he added, "This isn't about punishment, it's about accountability, and that begins today." With a final, unyielding look at Stevens, he pronounced, "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending an internal investigation." A collective gasp rippled through the room as Stevens' face reddened and his bravado crumbled to dust. Marcus then returned to the podium and concluded, accountability, respect, integrity, these are not mere suggestions, they are mandates. Every one of you will be held to these standards. His words resonated like a clarion call, marking the first step on a long, uncertain road. But change, as they say, always comes at a price. After the briefing room emptied, the charged atmosphere lingered like smoke. Alone at the podium, Marcus rested his hand on the embossed folder while the echoes of the earlier confrontation still reverberated. Officer Stevens had stormed out, his pride fractured and future dimmed. With a slow exhale, Marcus made his way to his new office at the end of a dim corridor. The creaking door revealed a modest room, a mismatched wooden desk, chairs out of sync, walls adorned with faded snapshots of days gone by, and a narrow window where stray beams of sunlight fought the gloom. As he settled in, memories of the morning, the spit, the derisive laughter, the cold dismissal in Stevens's eyes, played over in his mind, a stark reminder of a culture long allowed to fester. And then, a buzz shattered the silence. The phone vibrated, and a familiar voice crackled through, "Chief Bennett, this is Captain Holloway. I've begun pulling Officer Stevens's records, and the findings are troubling." Marcus's grip tightened on the receiver. "How troubling?" he demanded. Holloway's tone was heavy, multiple complaints spanning 3 years, excessive force, crude language during arrests, blatant racial profiling, all swept under the rug by the previous leadership. Marcus closed his eyes, recalling similar patterns from darker days. "Get me those records by day's end, and inform internal affairs that full cooperation is expected." After a curt acknowledgement, Marcus turned toward the window, watching Ridgefield streets come alive with mothers escorting children, teenagers pedaling through the early light, and shopkeepers unlocking their dreams. Every resident deserved better. Yet beneath every whispered corridor conversation, the winds of dissent stirred. Over the ensuing week, murmurs echoed through the precinct, officers speculated in hushed tones about Marcus's disruptive mandate, questioning his outsider status and the fate of those like Stevens. Still, Marcus persisted. Each day he walked the halls, greeting every officer with a steady, warm introduction, even as he sensed a simmering undercurrent of resistance. One afternoon, amid stacks of paperwork in his office, a gentle knock heralded the arrival of Officer Rachel Torres, a determined young woman in her late 20s with sharp, questioning eyes. "Chief Bennett, do you have a moment?" she asked, settling down with a grip on her cap as if anchoring herself. What truth would she unveil in that brief encounter? "I've served here 3 years," she began haltingly, "and I've witnessed things that shouldn't be." Marcus leaned in, inviting her to continue. "There's a culture here, sir, a culture where officers like Stevens do as they please while the rest of us remain silent, fearing that speaking up is tantamount to a career-ending move." Marcus's eyes softened with understanding. "But you are speaking up now," he said, voice imbued with resolve. "I believe in accountability and respect, and I can't do this alone." Hope flickered in the space between them as she affirmed, "You have my support, Chief." As she departed, Marcus felt a renewed surge of determination. Change would be neither swift nor easy, yet even small acts of courage could ignite transformation. And beyond the precinct walls, another battleground awaited. Recognizing that the malaise within the department mirrored a deeper community rift, Marcus organized an open forum at the local community center. Flyers were distributed across town, urging residents to confront the status quo and voice their grievances. That evening, beneath the modest glow of stage lights, Marcus faced a sea of skeptical eyes, mothers clutching their children, shopkeepers with crossed arms, and teenagers lurking in the shadows. "Thank you for coming," he began, his tone both firm and compassionate. "I am Chief Marcus Bennett, and I am here to listen." But the voices of the people were not yet silenced. Near the front, a weathered man in his 50s, donning a denim jacket and a cap, cried out, his voice trembling with anger, "Chief, my son was pulled over last year for no reason. The officer humiliated him in front of his friends, making him feel criminalized, and the officer simply walked away." A ripple of murmurs swept the crowd. Then, a woman's voice quavered, "Every time those lights flash behind us, our hearts sink, we live in fear." Marcus met their gazes with unflinching sincerity. "I cannot erase your pain, but I promise to rebuild this department brick by brick. We will hold every officer accountable and work tirelessly to regain your trust." A timid voice from a young boy broke through, "Are you really the chief?" Marcus knelt to his level, offering a warm smile. "I am, and I'm here to change the system for the better. If you ever need help, know that I am here for you." As the boy's smile grew, a fragile seed of hope was planted, a hope that perhaps change was possible. And as the community dispersed into the night, the path to renewal glimmered faintly ahead. Later, back in the solitude of his office, Marcus reclined in his chair, gazing out at the precinct's busy parking lot where shifting shadows danced on the pavement and officers moved with a mix of apprehension and resolve. Across from him sat Officer Maria Rees, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her uniform. "Rees," Marcus began softly, acknowledging silence is only the first step. "Accountability demands action. Are you prepared to take that step?" A determined nod answered him, "Yes, sir. I want us to be better." Leaning forward, Marcus continued, "I need officers who understand the gravity of this badge and the duty it represents. Start where you are, speak up, set an example, and trust that I will support you every step of the way." A small smile crossed Reese's face as she rose with newfound resolve, leaving behind a quiet promise of change. For sometimes, the smallest decisions ignite the brightest flames. In the tumultuous days following Stevens' suspension, a palpable tension suffused the department. Some colleagues resented Marcus's forthright approach, branding him an interloper disrupting a long-held status quo. Others, silently, began to question their own complicity. Yet the true challenge stretched far beyond the precinct, into a fractured town scarred by decades of mistrust, a community whose wounds ran deep from years of bias, abuse, and neglect. And one fateful Saturday morning, a deeper reckoning beckoned. Marcus found himself at a town hall held in a packed sanctuary at Trinity Baptist Church, a cherished haven for the community's black residents. The pews brimmed with restless energy, anger intermingling with tentative hope. Reverend Carter introduced him with heartfelt candor. "Brothers and sisters, meet Chief Marcus Bennett. He's not here merely to speak, but to truly listen." Removing his cap, Marcus addressed the assembly with raw honesty. "I know trust isn't given lightly. I cannot undo the past, but as long as I serve as your chief, every officer in my department will honor you with respect and integrity." The crowd fell into a weighted silence. Then, a small, trembling voice from a boy asked, "Is it true that the police don't care about us?" Stepping away from the podium, Marcus knelt beside him, his voice gentle yet firm. "I cannot change what you've seen, but I can promise that I care, and I will make sure every officer does too." The boy's nod, coupled with his mother's tearful embrace, signaled the fragile beginning of trust. In that sacred moment, the seeds of transformation were sown. Back at the station, Marcus resumed his daily rounds with quiet determination. He conversed with officers in the corridors, introduced rigorous new training on implicit bias, de-escalation techniques, and community engagement. While some embraced these changes, others clung stubbornly to the old ways, none more so than Officer Stevens, who, after filing an appeal against his suspension, saw his past transgressions laid bare, a string of complaints for excessive force, degrading language, and discriminatory behavior that had long been swept aside. When his appeal was denied, Stevens resigned in a fit of protest, a seismic shift that sent tremors throughout the department. And as the sunset marked another day's end, the true cost of change became clear. One evening, with the sun melting into the horizon, Marcus sat at his desk, poring over case files. Captain Holloway entered quietly, remarking, "Chief, it's been a tough few weeks, but the new recruits and younger officers are beginning to embrace this change." Marcus's eyes, heavy with exhaustion yet alight with resolve, replied, "Change is gradual, but every step forward is worth the struggle." Over the ensuing months, while deep wounds took time to heal, a cultural metamorphosis slowly emerged. New officers, drawn by Marcus's unwavering fairness and visionary leadership, joined the force. Those unable to adapt drifted away, leaving behind colleagues who began to see the community not as an adversary but as neighbors deserving of dignity. And amid these shifting tides, a single heartfelt moment would encapsulate it all. At a community event, this time not in uniform but as simply Marcus Bennett, a familiar face approached him. A young boy, the same one from the town hall, called out cheerfully, "Chief Bennett, the police are different now, they're kinder." Marcus's chest swelled with quiet emotion as he knelt down and grinned, "That's all I ever wanted, to see you feel safe." The boy enveloped him in a swift hug before darting back to his mother, and in that tender instant, Marcus sensed that every sacrifice had been worth it. Officers and citizens mingled, laughter bridging once unbridgeable divides, and for the first time in a long while, hope shimmered on the horizon. Yet as dusk settled over Ridgefield, a final reflection awaited. In the silent corridor of an emptied precinct, beneath the wan glow of fluorescent lights casting long, solitary shadows, Marcus paused to trace the worn emblem on his badge. Its weight was not merely metal and insignia, it was the embodiment of responsibility, a constant reminder that true leadership demanded more than authority, it demanded heart. As he switched off the lights and stepped out into the quiet night, he knew the struggle was far from over. In Ridgefield, a new foundation of respect, accountability, and unwavering dignity had been laid, a foundation that promised, with every hard-won day, that change was not just possible, but inevitable. And as the night swallowed the echoes of the day, the long road ahead shimmered with the promise of a better tomorrow.